Hello, everyone. This is William Del Pilar. Welcome to Fired Up California, where we are your sources for all things conservative. Election night in Los Angeles looked pretty straightforward. Karen Bass was comfortably in first. Spencer Pratt was in second with a solid lead, clearly ahead of Nithya Rahman by about 30 to 40,000 votes. Actually, about 40,000 votes as she sat in third, not even competing. Then the late mail in started. Over the next few days, as Los Angeles County processed batch after batch of mail in ballots, Rahman steadily chewed into that gap and eventually moved ahead of Pratt by roughly 3,000 votes when the news broke. And those tallies came from the AP and through election offices. And when the dust settled, Bass sat around 35%, Ramen around 27%, Pratt around 26. The difference between second and third was a sliver. Despite thousands of votes still left to count, Decision Desk has already called Nithya Ramen Soup Ramen the winner of that second spot. Because in California, everyone knows how the late mail in script usually ends. When you add up Rahman's cumulative mail in surge, you're talking about tens of thousands of ballots, about 43 to 48,000 votes that materialize over the course of this extended count. And Los Angeles' most recent homeless count puts the unsheltered and sheltered population right in that same band. Roughly 43 to 48,000 people living in the streets, in shelters, and in makeshift housing across the city. Coincidence? Maybe. But here's what everyone on the ground knows, and nobody in power wants to talk about. Democrats have an entire ecosystem of NGOs, many of them funded with taxpayer money. Their job? To get into homeless shelters and encampments, register people, quote, help, unquote, them vote. And in some cases, even fill out the ballots for them. So all that's left is a signature. That doesn't look like organic turnout. It looks like a managed outcome. And that's just one example. Remember, Democrats tend to control well over 90% of the county registrars and election offices in this state. Historically, they've slow walked or flat out blocked Republican observers, even though the law says both sides are supposed to have access. The worst part is this: even when you can point to clear irregularities, once a ballot is in the box, it counts. There is no way to pull it back out. I hate to say it, people. I and millions of others in California, and probably 80 to 90 to 100 million across the nation, well, we believe the fix is in and everyone feels it. But proving it is next to impossible when you have a spineless GOP, courts that don't want to get involved, and a legal structure designed to make exposure as hard as possible. And just in case that wasn't obvious enough, Gavin Newsom spent this week signing SB 73, a brand new law that makes it illegal for law enforcement or federal investigators to get at ballots, voter rolls, or voting machines without jumping through massive legal hoops. It's a delay tactic because, as we learned the last 6 years, the courts will tell you you can't challenge it because the election hasn't happened. And once the election has happened and they challenge it, the courts say, well, it's been certified. We can't do anything about it. So we're not going to hear it. Ironic, isn't it? Gavin Newsom is selling SB 79 as, quote, protecting elections from interference, unquote. In reality, it slams the door on anyone trying to look under the hood. So when you see a third place candidate suddenly leapfrog a populist challenger on the back of tens of thousands of late mail in ballots in a city with tens of thousands of homeless people, and a system built in where everyone receives a mail-in ballot, regardless if it's sent to an empty lot, a P.O. box, which is illegal, office buildings with no one in them, or a home with 50 people registered there to vote. We are also dealing with a system built for harvesting and secrecy. You're not crazy for thinking something here doesn't add up. And with that, let's bring in our weekly guest here, the beautiful Miss Annette Ross. Senorita,
Good morning.
how are you doing?
I am doing well. Discouraged maybe, but doing well.
Did my intro discourage you? Well,
Yeah.
that's how it goes. Let's get right into it.
Every
So,
every day I read the newspaper right now. It's discouraging me as I see the numbers changing.
well, it's no secret. It's no secret that the fix is in the minds of many. And my saving grace for all this is I've been preaching this, oh, I don't know, for the last, I can't remember how long it's been since I've been preaching it. But as you know, I've been preaching it over the last 2 years since we've been doing this podcast. And I
Yeah.
believe it never took grain with you or G. Yeah, maybe this or that happens. But this is a slap in the face to both of you, I believe. G Mangani being our other co-host, who is in the exotic jungles of Hawaii in a five-star hotel. So, Ms. Annette,
Yeah.
well, first of all, any comments to what I just said or to my opening before I ask you some discussion questions here to get your thoughts?
No, I mean, ouch a little bit. I mean, even though you're vindicated, I'm not going to say that you're not. It doesn't change the fact that we got a real problem on our hands. And it sounds like it's getting to be a deeper problem with the AB 73. So it's discouraging. We already have sort of a light, not a lot of people voting. It's not huge in numbers when you think about the population of Los Angeles, the importance of this mayoral election, um, the terrible job that Karen Bass did, and the excitement around Spencer Pratt. And to see this turn after the voting day is done, slowly but surely, to the 3rd place, candidate is very it's like, it's unbelievable. Come on. What's
This is
We all
distressing.
know what's happening. Yeah, we all know what's happening, as you said, hard to prove, but we know it, we see it, it's frustrating, and I think my biggest concern is, why wouldn't it discourage people from even trying?
That is part of the fallout. All right, so let's get right into it then.
Yeah.
How many miracle comebacks on late mail-ins does one city get before people start assuming the deck is stacked? Are we at that point right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people are talking about this, that the deck is stacked.
Now, I would agree with that.
Even you saw it with Hilton. His numbers have changed as well. Now he and Tom Steyer are closing the gap. We have to
Uh,
see what happens there.
exactly, exactamundo. So when the margin flips a race with the same numbers as the entire homeless population, is it crazy to ask whether those ballots and that population are connected? It is. Now, it doesn't align perfectly, and it's not the full story because there's so many other factors, but that aligns with a good chunk of my opening in terms of how they target the homeless. We're going to get into that here in a few seconds, but what are your initial thought on that? Is
I
that too
thought
much conspiracy
I
or
don't
is there some validity there?
I don't know if it's conspiratorial, but when you said it, I thought about it and I thought that would be a very hard thing to achieve. And let me tell you why I think that. Even I was in downtown San Diego on Friday near a homeless area. And to me, I mean, fun for me, I guess. The guy pulled his pants down right in front of me, William. So that was
Was he porn
interesting.
star quality?
I was like, what's happening here? But wouldn't it be very difficult to get them to co- to not collaborate, but to be in on that? Do you know what
Not
I'm
at
saying?
all. Not at all.
Well, I'm
So
just saying they seem a little out of their mind to me.
they don't need to have a conversation with him. Hey, Joe, here's a pack of cigarettes. Can you sign your name here? smokes. Yeah. Here's a quarter a pint of what's your favorite alcohol, Joe? Oh, I like Jim Beam. Bob, go in the truck. Comes back with
That's
a bottle. That's how they do it.
that's
Eh,
super
There,
organized, though. That's a plan.
did you listen? Yes, in my intro, that's what an NGO is. It's a nonprofit.
Yes, I
Look at it. So, hold on.
yep.
24 billion have been has been tossed into the homeless. A massive chunk of it, if not mostly all of it, going to nonprofits with Democrat operatives running it. They pay themselves high salaries, and part of their shtick is doing what I just claimed. Now, is this every single one? No, but pretty close because, as we stated, the homeless population has grown and gotten worse,
Yes,
not better. So,
yes.
yes, there are people out there who do this. They got them on film at times. There was one maybe 3 cycles ago. They caught him on film doing that with the homeless people. Here's something you may not know. So, when the Supreme Court ruled for George Bush, when Al Gore was trying to steal that election down in Florida, George Bush had Minnesota, where they had illegal ballots because they had documentation of Democrat operatives selling booze and cigarettes to the homeless for their votes. And they had similar cases in Arizona. Bush should have pursued this, but that moron, and Bush to me will always be a moron because he was bought and paid for by donors. Oh, wait, he started Wounded Warrior. Really? He's the one who sent our troops who got wounded. So enough with that nonsense. But my point is, he goes, we will not pursue those for the good of the country. Well, if you don't pursue them, this is what eventually happens. Politics is war. It's not a blood stained war, but it is a war that destroys lives and destroys citizens' lives even more because of the laws these people put into place. So, for does that kind of answer your question there?
I mean, it makes me more cynical. I can see how it's possible, and I do agree because I think I've been on a little bit on the inside of this, where there's a lot of money spent on the homeless, the plight of the homeless, and with all of that money, I see so few solutions and so few of those organizations actually doing what they aim to do, which is sort of change it, get people back involved in society again and be a contributing member of society. So yeah, there's a lot of waste there. A lot of those organizations are just helping the people that are running it, like you said, with very high paid positions and not concentrating on, again, the plight of the homeless. So I can see how they can be taken advantage of. Isn't that so sad though? They're already disenfranchised from society, and now they're being
No,
taken advantage of.
I get that. I get that. We're not
I
here to
know, but,
talk
you know,
about
I'm
the
a human
homeless per
I'm
se.
a human being, though, who cares about other human beings. But your point is not about the homeless, your point is, could they being used in this way? And I see that
Oh,
it's
yes, yes. I mean,
yes.
I just don't wanna get we're starting to digress
Yeah,
and go to the homeless
yeah,
and
but
that,
I
and
just
you're
saying
right.
that
The
it's a double it's
Okay, so let's keep moving here, though. I wanna ask
yep,
you this.
yep,
If this exact pattern happened in a foreign country, a third world country, because 'cause I've seen it happen just like this.
yeah.
Stalin made that quote famous, even though we're not sure Stalin actually said it. It's not the person who votes that make the difference, it's the person who
The
counts
parents,
the votes.
yes.
So
Mhm.
we have seen this in many other countries. So if we saw a third place candidate, say example in my country, Panama, vaulting into second on late mail-ins and qualifying to go head to head against the incumbent, would our media call it free and fair, or would they be deeply suspicious? I know the answer because this has already happened over and over. What would you think of that?
Well, this makes me feel like we are in a third world country.
Bingo!
This this
And you
er
have just hit 99 cents on this on the wheel.
thank you. Thank you. From going from digression to getting the question answered correctly. I love it.
We are. We have a they're calling California's election process third world. All right, so once you see how ramen went from third to second on the sea of late ballots, the next question is obvious. What exactly changed in those days of counting, and how does California's election machine really work? So let's get into that
I had
a
a curious
little.
question about ramen really quickly. Did I get that
No,
right?
she doesn't own the ramen noodle
No,
dynasty.
but did she concede that? Did she concede?
Yes.
Isn't
I lost. Oh. Yeah, her emotions
only
showed.
2. Yeah, only 2.
I have been reborn.
Yes, yes,
I
revived.
am back.
A resurrection.
Socialism. Ah.
Wow, miracles never cease.
God has chosen me. I believe in God. Oops.
Exactly.
So, so let's look at it from this perspective. I want the listeners to walk away with the mental scoreboard they can follow for the rest of the show here. So I'm
Okay.
going to break this down a little bit here. And I'm looking at my notes and they're all over the place here. So I'm going to go off my side notes here, people, real quick. So Bass election night, Bass is at first with the solid plurality, meaning she's dominating. They're not going to catch her. Pratt is in second, several points, percentage points ahead of Robin. Robin is in third, and those percentage points specifically, she's trailing 8.1 percentage points and approximately 40,000 votes behind. Let me repeat that 40,000 votes. These are low turnout elections. And I will preface, okay, we'll get to that in a second. Well, no, I'll do it now. So I will preface this with prior to the mail in ballots being sent to every single person, an election on the primary would be 20%. The 30% would consider it. Oh my God, turnout was huge. Once the mail in ballots, all of a sudden started to see 90% mail in ballot returns. And that
Wow.
doesn't align with any statistic formula out there. And
And
yet,
you love statistics.
yep. So as LA County reports new batches on the mail, mostly the mail in ballots, because there are still a few other ways people vote, but it's pretty much mail in. The news outlets track the creepy change. Thursday update Pratt is up 29%, Raman 23%, still up by about 6 percentage points there. The Friday update came out. So remember, election night's Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Pratt drops to 28%, Ramen rises to 25%. In one batch, a 3% gain. Saturday, Pratt dropped another percentage point, but Ramen gained another percentage point. The gap is down to now 7,500 votes. From 40,000 to 7,500 votes in two massive drops. So by Sunday and Monday, multiple outlets were reporting that Rahman had overtaken Pratt by roughly 3,000 votes, just enough to squeak ahead. So in one reported batch, Rahman picked up around 23,000 votes and Pratt only 10,000. That's more than a 2-to-1 ratio. That's a
Mhm.
red flag. So across, oh, well, William, they're all Democrats. Well, that's what they said about Trump in 2024. In 2016. Trump even got more votes in 2020 than he did in 2016. We're going to talk about Biden's 20 million vote increase that came out of nowhere. I mean,
Mhm.
Biden was the first black president, according to that vote tally. So my point is, upsets happen. Dewey was expected to be president. Jim Desmond was expected to go down this cycle locally here in San Diego. So the arrogance of Democrats say, well, those are all laid-in Democrats. Yeah, if NGOs have gone to the homeless and voted for them. So across all late mail-ins, the cumulative gain for Rahman versus Pratt lands in the tens of thousands, over 40,000. And she magically gets into second. Now, Rahman is the sitting council member for CD4. That's her district for the LA City Council. She loses to both Bass and Pratt in her own district. That's like Mondale, who only won one state, Minnesota, his home state. That's the
Yeah.
equivalent of Mondale losing his home state. Yet she wins citywide on the strength of late mail in ballots from other districts, many where she's not even known. I mean, did they possibly confuse, hey, I'm voting for ramen noodle soup here to change? So, how does a candidate who loses her own district suddenly explode with support in areas where voters barely know her or don't even know her? And it's only in late arriving mail in ballots. Take a stab at that, Annette.
I'm going to. I have a quick question. While she was gaining all these votes and percentage points, how was Karen Bass doing? It would only stand to reason that she'd be making gains as
Nope.
well.
She was not. She was steady, pretty much staying
At
pretty even.
35.
So that's one of the theories. Well, most people, if there's anybody that the late mail-in ballot voting would have come from,
It-
is Bass because she had the machine behind her name
correct.
recognition,
Correct.
and she's an incumbent, which magically gets you a massive
It is
turnout.
what it is.
But
Yeah.
yet, all the votes came in for somebody people didn't even know.
It's mind blowing that it could even happen that statistically, it doesn't. You love statistics, but that's not even because you think she would have to have the gains too. If it was looking at that, okay, all the mail in ballot voters are Democrat, let's say. Karen Bass would have to also improve.
Check that out, Annette. There you go. You see that
Yes, I
rise by
see it.
Senorita
I
Ramen. You see Bass actually started to lose some votes here,
yes.
and Pratt
Wow.
obviously was dropping like a rock.
That is just it's
Amazing.
yeah, really. Wow. Yeah, it really is a miracle, city of angels. I don't know what happened, what of supernatural proportion happened, but something, and we all really know it reeks.
Yes, yes. Now I'm sure going to show you guys various snapshots here. They all show the same thing. Here's another one.
That mm,
This is from Ballot Book. It's a local San Diego operative who is trying to get into this business. But you see her there,
mhm,
35% Bass. She got a 20,000 a vote spike. Pratt 10,000. But there's Nithya Raman, 24,000 approximately there.
mhm.
So as you pointed out, theoretically, not even theoretically, statistically speaking, most of
Yes,
those votes in Nithya should have been going to Karen back.
correct. Correct.
So let's get to this next.
You said the fix is in,
I believe so. I
and
believe it's
I
not
think
even debatable.
they're
Okay,
set up so there's no chance to
so give me your thoughts here.
yeah.
Let's say I got a gun to your head. You a socialist now. How would you explain the late mail-in ballots consistently breaking so heavily for the most progressive, the socialist candidate who people have not heard of, but not for the incumbent? So you brought up the question: how, in any reasonable way, could that happen?
It's undoubtedly some type of fraud that we're not necessarily we don't have like you said, we can't prove it, but the rest it doesn't make any sense at all. You're not just scratching your head like you smell a rat and it looks like a rat and it's a rat. I mean, we all know it. It's out there. It's that's what's happened. It's right in front of our faces. That's what's so frustrating about it.
Right
And
here's where
just
you see it. And that see the 71 to 153. This
yep.
is from June 6th, the latest. But see, jumps like that are just unheard of.
It,
They're unheard of.
well, I guess they're miraculous even. I mean, they're really like so yeah. And it's also unheard of that that would happen, and we know the mail-in ballots favor Democrats and that Karen Bass was just steady Eddie, and they all went to Rahman, who spiked up to get Spencer Pratt out of the race.
All right. So let's say we didn't know. We didn't know who was who.
Mhm,
You're reading this from a foreign land. You don't recognize the names of parties. So if you saw these numbers without party labels, third
mhm.
jumps to second, 2-1 scale with the late ballots, loses her home base, meaning her district, but wins remote areas. Would you call that organic or engineered? If you
Oh,
didn't know.
I'd call it engineered, of course.
I agree.
We
'Cause
don't even have she didn't even have I don't really know what her ground game was, so I don't wanna say that. But we're also talking minuscule voters compared to what who should be the numbers that should be voting for the LA mayoral race, right? We're not talking the numbers that we need to be seeing to feel that people are really engaged in what is going on.
Well, once you understand how those numbers moved, and our belief is they move through nefarious means, the
Yes.
next step is to look at the playing field itself. Because California election rules are not neutral turf, they're built for exactly this kind of outcome.
Yeah.
So, I don't want us to get lost in the legal details because people
Okay.
don't like to hear the legal mumbo jumbo. And the audience, what you need to remember is every single point is going to end with one statement. This makes fraud easier and detection harder. That's what we mean by the fix is baked in. It's the ease of how fraud can be done and yet how hard it how hard it is to be detected. Now, I'm going to jump probably ahead slightly here, but I want you to understand this to the audience. A good friend of the show, Jamie Miller, who used to come on regularly, then got a gig, and they kind of said, "Yeah, we don't want you front and center out there as much." I called him up. I said, "Jamie, come on, man, come on! I need you on the show."
Yes.
And
Love him.
he goes, "I'm gonna sneak in a few shows, but I'm off with the parents on vacation." And Jamie's probably in his 60s by now, so God bless his parents still being around, so he couldn't make it. But I'll never forget the story he told us because I wanted him to come on and explain the process. But Jamie Miller was part of the Florida recount where Al Gore tried to steal that election. Now, why do I say steal? Well, you, the audience, may not realize is when because some of you may be too young, some of you may be Democrats and too dumb to realize the truth. So I will educate you, my friends, bring you on board to the conservative point of view, which is called the truth. So what happened in Florida? They started the Chads. Remember the hanging Chad?
Hanging chads.
So this is an example of what had really happened. Nobody voted for president here, but they voted for the Democrat senator and the Democrat attorney general. They must have meant to vote for the president. Cha-ching! There's a ballot. Here you can't even tell chicken scratch. They voted for both. It looks like they messed it up. I think that's a Democrat. It's darker where they pointed. It's obvious they accidentally voted here, realized they wanted to vote for this for Al Gore, and that's darker. Cha-ching! Democrat vote. The Republicans quickly realized, holy mackerel, this is what he's going to do. Why? Al Gore went to court and cherry picked the Democrat counties to do this. He didn't. He claimed Florida was not properly counted, but he went to Democrat counties to. They couldn't do a complete recount of the state and that how they were doing it with looking at each ballot. So he and the courts approved the handpicked Democrat counties. The Republicans realized, oh man, once these and technically the Republicans could challenge them, but they were counted. And once they were in the system, they couldn't be pulled out. The recount wasn't about pulling votes out, it was making sure every vote counted. That was a mantra. So they realized that the Democrats were going to keep doing that until they had enough votes to surpass Bush. And they knew that these ballots were not being fairly done. And these were registers run by Democrat operatives. Most of the volunteers were Democrat operatives, meaning they leaned Democrat, so they were more apt to give the favor to the Democrat. So it was the fix was happening. Luckily, it was stopped in time. That same process is still happening now. You combine that with all the mail-in ballots, and you can see how this makes fraud easier. And once the ballot is in, detection is much harder to figure out how to pull them out because they're passing go and going straight to the finish line. And once they're past that finish line, it's next to impossible to find that vote. There's a lot in between that I haven't mentioned, like signatures not matching up. The witness, there was a witness that put a smiley face, not his signature. We're probably going to get into a little bit. There's also the fact they say, no, ballots have to be postmarked, William. What you talking about? No, they don't. You can hand fill the postmark, which is unheard of. Here's the other thing. I was in the military. When you're underway on a ship, there's a job rating, a designation, an MOS as they call it in the Army, a designation in the Navy, and you're a postal guy. I don't know if that job still exists, but you're the mail guy. And bro, here's a bill. Can you postmark it 5 days earlier? It was due. I could tell them it was sent. And when they see the postmark, okay, it was sent. They would do that. So fraud with the postmarking does happen as well. So what are any thoughts before I keep moving on and,
I just have a quick question. Something I was wondering about when all this happened. If we continue to have mail-in ballots, but if they did not arrive by election day, they didn't count, would that be good enough? Like mail-in ballots, you can mail them up to, and if they don't arrive by the day of the election, so all ballots by the end of the election day, whenever that time closes, ballots not in.
I think it should be law because here's what I do. I get a mail-in ballot. Why?
Mhm,
Because I research every candidate when I don't know them. What I like to
mhm.
do, and honestly, guys, I love going down on election day and dropping it off. So that's what they can do.
That'd be a
Right.
simple thing. That'd be a simple thing to do.
Right. In William, there's no polling place in me. Yeah, because Newsom shut them all down. That was part of the purpose of mail-in ballots. We can save money. We can save millions of dollars
Yeah.
for the average citizen if we just mail them in. No, there's some things your tax dollars should be used for, and
And
that
another question I have about the way it's set up right now. So the mail-in ballots continue to trickle in. Is there a deadline for how many days?
yes, I want to say up to the 9th was the last day. Today's the last day.
Okay.
Again, they can. We're still counting on the 12th. Yeah, yeah. They all postmarked by the 9th. We're still counting. What's that? She's 200 short. Where's that bad shin? They don't have postmark.
Right. Right.
Writing them in. Yes, they do. If you're Robin 50 plus 1, you win. See
That
how see, it makes fraud easier.
it
Yeah,
does.
well, hold on. What about Letitia there? She says we can't do that. Letitia's looking the other way. I'm looking the other way, darling. Go ahead. Do what you need to do. Postmark June 9th. It's on time. I'm giving you guys
Scenarios.
and scenarios, and I'm doing them sarcastically, but that's how it happens. Real life is not like Hollywood with the music, the drama, everything blaring, and everything.
Oh,
It's
sure
more
it is.
simplistic. It's
It's
more
worse.
simplistic. So, what are the ways to make fraud easier? Well, you got universal mail-in ballots. California automatically mails a ballot to every registered voter, active and still inactive because of inaccurate records. Mail in receipt and backdating concerns. Again, as I just said, ballots can be received or as Annette said, ballots can be received days after election day and
Yeah.
still count if deemed timely. Dates on envelopes can be written by hand, not just machine postmark. Steve Hilton, current candidate who was leading after election night, is now in second with Tom Steyer, the billionaire who spent 200 million in third, starting to slowly reach him. We don't know if he'll actually overtake him, but he's getting close. So Steve Hilton's quote, it's not just the postmark, you can hand write the date. You can backdate your ballot by hand and it will be counted, unquote. No one challenged him on that because it was true. Had that not been true, the mainstream media would have been Steve Hilton is a liar. No voter ID at the polls. California bans, it's illegal, traditional voter ID requirements in person. So when Representative Kevin Colley, who was a guest on Stephen A. Smith, told Stephen A. Smith that the state doesn't allow voter ID, Smith was floored because most people don't understand this. Quote, hold on, what? I can't believe it. Lord have mercy. You can't make this up. Unquote. How many people are going to call me racist for my Stephen A. Smith imitation there? Then
Uh,
there's also weak ID standards at registration. So
right.
let's say and that's urchins, I'm sorry, one of her kids goes, I want to vote, Mama San. I want to vote for the first time, Mama San. First time voters. And let's say Annette and Bill said, you don't need a social security number. It never got her one. So for first time voters without a social security number, or a driver's license. Let's use the daughter in New York City. She doesn't have to drive. A driver's license, and she decides to vote in California, which is now possible. California's HAVA guidance accepts gym membership cards,
Yep.
credit or debit cards, employer commercial IDs, insurance cards, student IDs, etc. In essence, this means you can get on the voter roll without ever showing a real government or valid ID that you actually have to provide proof of who you are and your residency and citizenship. As a citizenship, I have to bring in my birth certificate, etc. Prove this. As an illegal, I don't. They just give you a driver's license. So even a valid ID is no longer a valid ID if you're an illegal. It's just given to you. And what happens at DMV? You're automatically registered to vote. So, Annette, why does a state that claims its elections are the most secure in America feel the need to make it a felony for outsiders to look at ballots and rolls? So, if it's so clean, the cleanest
Mhm.
way to vote, why? Why are they making it illegal for people to go, well, let me check that, Bob, just to make sure? Oh, you do that, you're going to jail.
Since when is the library card not a valid ID? I'm just joking. Anyway, um, so they can control it. I mean, it's all about control, which is like it's coming in. It's sort of like that scene in the original Star Wars. The walls are coming in and
Oh, yeah,
attracting you out
trash
there.
thing.
It's all about control. And I think that's happening in many different facets of our state, not just with our elections, which will continue to only go one way. The walls are closing in.
So if voter ID is voter suppression, remember
Yeah.
that's what Democrats say. Voter ID is voter suppression. You don't want that black man to vote. He don't know where the DMV is. He don't know how to read. He don't know what the internet is. That's
That's
how.
that's
And
so
that, am I making that up, or is
no.
that not? Well,
We actually saw that firsthand.
that's
We
right.
saw,
And
and
then
that's a real thing that they have that opinion, and it has been definitely refuted and debunked, refused that they wanna go
it's
continue to go with that narrative.
it's white Democrat supremacists. The soft bigotry of low expectations. They think black, brown are too stupid, and their white supremacist values will help them out. Gots to help the brother out. Gots to help Essay out.
The helpless the helpless.
I don't need help. Yeah, you do. Shut up, boy. You helpless. I'm helping you out. I can't tell them go to church. You an atheist now. So if voter ID is suppression, how is it not also suppression to flood the system with ballots that negate votes and then criminalize anyone who tries to audit what happened? Isn't what they're doing just another way of voter suppression? It's nullifying all these people's votes.
Yeah, and I don't know, you said earlier the AB 73 might not make it,
SB,
but
SB.
SB, I always say AB, SB, but you wonder if I mean, I don't know why you think it won't make it, but it's just the layers that they want to
Illegal.
put in.
It's illegal.
Well,
That's why.
you you think that's the first time that anything illegal is happening in California in terms of the way they do
No,
business
no,
here?
but it becomes a process. They
Yeah,
ask the
it could be a
judges, "So what's
process.
going in place, judge, for this election cycle here, as we're too close to the election cycle, because if it's deemed legal, then we've kinda done an injustice." And the liberal leftist judge who's got free shipping on Gavin Newsom's knee pads says, "You're right there, Mr. Democrat." So that's why they try to do it. They try to
But
create
isn't
roadblocks.
isn't that what you said though earlier? Isn't that the third world nature of what
Yes,
we
yes,
have
yes, but
going?
let's not jump ahead though. No, no, we're gonna get the SB 73 in depth.
Okay,
So, voter ID, so as okay, so how many of
ask the
LA's
question.
miracle late ballots came out of a system where you can register with a gym card, vote by mail without ID, and know the feds won't be allowed to check? I say most of them came out of that from the homeless. A lot of these homeless, the NGO people were signing their signatures. You can't even tell with the signatures. There's no verification. So I think most of these late mail-in ballots,
Yeah,
you're talking a 90% mail-in ballot return, when in the past you're talking single-digit mail-in ballot returns. A good election cycle, maybe 19% mail-in ballot returns. So that's a massive gap.
yeah. I think your hunch is is right. I just can't, again, it's not provable. It'd be interesting for some, like, independent sort of,
It's provable.
you
It's
said
ain't
earlier
there
that
has
you
ever it's hard to prove. No, 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 no. Proving that ballot, once it's in the system, is fake. Proving this whole mechanism, oh my God, there's video on there, people how they deal with the homeless. Well, that's just a small scale. That's just one or two here. Well, no study, no investigation has actually ever been done. Democrats will go, there's no illegal voting. And then when you show them, oh, that's just one or two, they move the goalposts. Well, with no investigations allowed, or with the states blocking investigations from happening
yep,
and not giving information or allowing access, that's what makes it hard to prove. But if
yep.
we had the judges who immediately would say, yes, you have to do that, and then they don't, we arrest them, people will start opening. But we don't. We don't do anything to Democrats who break the law. We just let them go on their business. And that emboldens them because Republicans have done nothing when they should have back at the turn of the century. We are here today now where they've created an almost impregnable stronghold. And we're going to get into it, but the SAVE Act is another.
No, but you're right that we're behind as Republicans and conservatives. And I think many people said to me when I got into the school board, Democrats were putting people in the local governments much earlier than we were getting some conservatives in there. So already it was like playing catch up. And it gets to the point where you said, "Can you break through?"
Exactly. Oh, real quick, I do want to show the audience just to backtrack here, real quick here. Check this out, Annette. So I found this on X, but then I looked it up and they had already marked it up on X, so it worked better. Can you see that?
A vote by mail ballot identification envelope has no dated postmark. The postmark is the one that you have circled in red, right?
Yeah, look in red though. Vote by mail ballot identification envelope has no data postmark. The postmark is ineligible. And there is no date stamp for receipt from a bona fide private mail delivery service, but the voter has dated the vote by mail ballot. So it's gone from the machine to the voter can date it. And you don't think a voter in the registrar's office, in a Democrat run registrar's office, where they don't allow the Republicans or they throw the Republicans out. That doesn't happen. Yes, the point, and people are like, "Well, William, what proof do you have?" The I don't have to show the proof. The fact that that's in there and allows it to happen is a massive red flag and should not be allowed and should be changed. Racist voter suppression. That poor person was just too stupid to go sit there and mail in the ballot because he lives in the ghetto, the barrio, or on the Indian reservation. So I, as a white supremacist Democrat, have to count that vote for them. Postmark. Why are you such a racist, William? That's the game they've played for the last 20 years. And I say it sarcastically, but when you try to implement the law, when you try to make it an election with integrity, they call you a racist and you lack compassion. That's been their whole shtick for actually since the 1960s. So then when you think California couldn't make this system any harder to audit, Gavin Newsom goes and signs one more law that turns the whole thing into an election fortress. SB 73. SB 73.
Yep.
So I want to treat this more as its own fact and stakes type of segment here. I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds, but in essence, what SB 73 actually does, it's signed quietly by Gavin Newsom on May 27th, just days before Californians went to the polls. And it makes it a crime for law enforcement or federal agents to access voted ballots, voter rolls, or voting machines unless they have a warrant or a very narrow state authorized investigation. Democrats pitch it as protecting elections from interference and keeping Trump from seizing ballots. In practice, it builds a legal wall around the entire California election system, especially the ballot roll and machine data you'd need to prove fraud or systemic abuse. So, why it's being called Newsom's election fortress? Well, California already has universal mail in ballots to everyone on the rolls, which is massive red flags. I myself received, when I was independent and switched to Republican, It was the ballots, not the real ballot, but like the practice ballots they send you with all this stuff.
Yep.
I received one for both independent and Republican. And because of that, when I called and informed them, I asked the lady, would I have received one as an independent natural ballot? She goes, more than likely you would have. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But thank you for calling this and rectifying this for us.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, I know you honestly just blowing hot air and thinking, gosh. Anyway, so no voter ID at the polls and weak ID standards at registration. Again, I am Juan Luis Lopez. I just crossed the border and I like President Biden. Here you go, Juan. Feel free. Head on over there and fill your ballot. You need a little help there, Juan? We got it for you. Or habla español. Here you go, Juan. It's in Spanish. One of 27 languages we, the taxpayers, have put in for make voter fraud easier. Ballot harvesting is fully legalized. So we've been talking about the homeless. I first got into politics when I was in college. And I remember that's when I learned about the retirement home scams. Democrats would go register retirees and they caught somebody and sent her to jail. Well, she was doing all the ones who registered Republicans, she was putting them in the trash on her way out and only taking the Democrat ones in. So this is not something new. It's been going around. And we talk about the homeless, but there's also the retirement homes. They also go to barrios, the ghettos. They go wherever they can to grab this ballot harvesting. And people say, well, Republicans are doing that. Don't. Don't ever give your ballot to another person, Republican or not. Because when you give it to a Reform California guy, because it's called DeMaio, I don't know if he actually implemented it, but was pushing ballot harvesting. They're not going to vote for the candidate you want. They're going to vote for the candidates that will support Carl DeMaio. They're going to support the candidate that's going to vote for the Republican of their choice, the person who's gathering out those. Your vote is sacred. Do the research and do it yourself. So I'm like, screw you, Republican Party. Don't ever, ever come to my house. I'll have choice words for you. And since I live in the rural country, cha-ching, choice words if you don't get off my land. Then you got voter rolls that aren't aggressively cleaned. LA worked out a deal because they were busted in court and they lost in court, but they didn't clean the ballot rolls. They still haven't cleaned the ballot rolls like they were supposed to. And that's all over the state. We have millions of voters on the rolls that shouldn't be there. They're either dead. So this individual in Virginia, he said, I live in Virginia now, and for like the 10th year, I've received a voter roll. So a newspaper said, we have debunked this. He never received it. What he was saying is the ballot was still being mailed to his home to where he used to live in California. So what did the newspaper do? They just lied. They created a straw man. We debunked this. We debunked it. It was never sent. Well, that's not what he said. It's still being received at where he used to live, but they won't touch that. So they create a lie, and I hope this person sues them because they, in essence, were trying to destroy his credibility. So SB 73 adds a final piece. If you want to investigate how those ballots were used or misused, you now risk criminal charges unless you navigate a maze of warrants and state-approved processes. Now, we critics, we call this Newsom's election fortress because it doesn't just run a loose system, it criminalizes trying to look inside of it. Mm-hmm. Before we talk about how this will be challenged, your thoughts, Annette?
Well, when I first read it, I was trying to think of myself as in neutrality and thinking, is this a good thing to protect voter integrity or is it? I didn't want to only look at it from my conservative perspective. I think my overall feeling about it is this. They do a lot of very insidious, um, corrupt things under the name of we're trying to protect voter integrity. We're trying to help you. We're trying to secure free and fair elections. However, when you read this and the steps you would have to take to try to actually have any transparency in the voting, it shows that it's corrupt to the very core. And you want to know what it really reminded me of?
What's
It
that?
reminded me of something at the school board level. We have a sex education. This is gonna be relevant. Just give me 1 second on it. we have sex education and we have slides for sex education. And we show seventh graders, well, we changed it. But what was recommended, what the state was putting forth, was 25 slides on HIV. In those slides, they were able to say all kinds of things that children, because I think a seventh grader, still a child for the most part, right, should not be exposed to. Under the guise, just like this, of no, we're protecting them. They don't look at it like we're exposing them to all sorts of vile, grotesque, sexual things. No, that's protection. Just like this, we're protecting it. Inside of it is like the apple that kills Snow White, but they try to make it look like a big, juicy, delicious apple.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's always under that veil of we want to help you.
Exactly. So Newsom did talk about a secret weapon. I don't know if you saw that presser he gave, but if you didn't, you're in for a treat here.
Oh, I'm excited. I love him.
Gavin Newsom. Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm joking.
So this is all over the internet. This one came in from Brandon Tatum, the Officer Tatum, a black conservative. Yes, they do exist, people. So listen to this.
We all have agencies. We can shape the future. There's still a lot. I've said this before, so I'll repeat it. I don't anticipate this need to be the case, but there is a break the glass scenario. And there's many people that have a deep understanding of what it would look like if Democrats were locked out. And we're going to do everything to make sure that doesn't happen. I'll leave it at that.
Think about that. So this was one way. The other one was with the mail-in ballot. That's what I think it was. Some people are saying this was a secret weapon, this SB 73, because once the fix is in, he wants to make it as difficult as possible for an investigation to take place. I think it's the mail-in ballot, and it was proven true. We saw Spencer Pratt moved up.
That's right. But he said something interesting, and I'm sure you caught it.
At the beginning.
Agencies shape the future,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
not individuals.
That's right. That's right, my friends. That is right. So
That
here's now to go along with this arrogance, I wanted to pull this up here because it shows an important point I brought up earlier to Annette. It's the arrogance. Are these people really dumb enough to be shocked that a Republican lost in LA, or are they just lying? We've actually had many Republican candidate or mayors when they weren't expected to win. These are nonpartisan races. There was a time they would not matter. There were times that it would not matter who the person running was because it was nonpartisan and they would elect a Republican. So her saying, are these people really dumb enough to be shocked that a Republican lost in LA, or are they just lying? That's the arrogance and expectations of the typical white suburban woman here in this case. They're the worst of the lot. That's right. I'm a man saying that. Go jump in the lake. I grew up with 3 strong women, a strong aunt, a strong mother. They would take that little crystal ball and beat her down in the putty. She's a degenerate. To think that shows a superiority complex that shouldn't be there as American or as an American, but it's there. And my issue with that is Trump won in 2016 after Hillary, the anointed one, was expected to win. Trump lost in 2020 and yet got more votes than anybody than any Republican in history at the time. We've had various Republican mayors in the Democrat city. San Diego is now pretty much purple or blue in many ways, but we had Republican senator or mayors here. We've had Republican mayors in New York City as well. I want to get real quick back here because this is a good spot to fit it in, is because we're talking about the fact that Newsom won't allow these recounts. Trump tried to get the recount and he fell into massive issues. We'll get into that. Actually, I apologize. We'll get into that in a bit. Let's go back to how will this be challenged? Well, on that, SB 73 will be challenged through the Supremacy Clause. That's the term I was looking for off camera.
Supremacy, okay.
And federal preemption angle. So federal laws like the Help America Vote Act and National Voter Registration Act, that gives the Department of Justice the power to inspect voter rolls and election records for compliance. That in and of itself is why the Supreme Court will throw this out. The problem is it may take years. Trump may try to get this one expedited, and it'll likely be heard because we have a couple of justices that are aware of election tampering and issues of that note. Not all of them, just a handful. So that gives the DOJ, those two things give the DOJ the power to inspect voter rolls and election records. SB 73 tries to put state criminal penalties in the way of that federal authority. In essence, they're trying to nullify it, but they don't have the power. The state does not trump federal law. That's gone all the way to the Supreme Court multiple times. It's also going to be turned because it's interference with the federal investigation. If the FBI or DOJ are investigating voter fraud, illegal voting, or non-citizen registration, a state law that threatens them with prosecution for touching ballots is a clear obstacle to federal law enforcement. It's like when they keep trying to say they're going to do this with ICE, going to do that with ICE. They don't have the legal authority. So who could sue? Obviously, the Trump-aligned DOJ, or any DOJ for that matter. But we know a Republican won't. A Republican will sit there and threaten to take the people to jail who wanted to challenge it as Biden's DOJ. What was a guy called? Not Mayorkas, but the guy who ran the DOJ, who was briefly a SCOTUS candidate and went nowhere. But
shoot. What's his name?
But why you think of that?
Merrick Garland?
Merrick Garland. He went after parents. He went after individuals challenging what schools were trying to do in implementing wokeness. He said that parents were a domestic threat, conservative parents were a domestic terrorist threat here in this country. So they would never do it. But so it would probably take Trump-aligned DOJ or Republican-aligned DOJ, but Republican lawmakers, candidates, but election integrity groups will also jump in on this. And then you also have local sheriffs or registrars who want clarity will challenge it. We need clarity from the courts on this because you're not giving it to us, Democrat Party, and we disagree with you. So I like some of the likely outcomes. It's struck down, which I believe will happen eventually. But to start, they may strike down parts. The court may send it back. California, you need to strike this down, strike it down, and clean it up. Or narrow the SB 73 so it can't be used to dodge federal audits while leaving some constraints. That's what they're hoping to get out of it. Democrats always push and push to get something out of it. But until that happens, the law functions exactly as intended. And right now they can go, we can't by law let you in. Gavin Newsom the law. And they would have to go to court. And so the registrar's office could say, oh, the court says that's an illegal law. I got to let you in. Okay. We see how time passes. Oh, we just certified the election. And courts will go, election certified, we can't change it. So they don't even want to hear any disputes. That's proven fact. So California elections are as secure and transparent as Newsom says. Why did he have to pass this law, señorita?
Well, because they're not as secure and transparent as he says. He passed the law because he's a out and out liar and they're not secure or transparent. So he passed a law so he could always be able to control the outcome. It's really right in front of our face. And I think you made an interesting point about Trump. He had the only way, maybe right now, while this goes on its long legal voyage, is to have so many people engaged in voting that you can't have a fix. Is that possible?
That's right. Too big to fix.
Yep. Is that possible in California? I don't know.
No, because of the mail-in ballots.
No, but you said too big to fix. Getting so many people engaged, helping them to believe their vote will make a difference. The numbers will add up.
No.
Okay,
It's easier to fix a city like LA versus 50 states. So they pick and choose their battles. So they don't want every senator to win. They want to go to those battleground states to sit there and cherry pick. Okay, we can win here. And so let's flood this place. We were not going to worry about this. We'll swap it. We'll chalk this up to a loss. It's much different on a smaller scale, such as Los Angeles City, not county, city. and most of the homeless are in the city.
Correct. Correct. Well, I mean, so you're not I don't see the window of hope here. So I need you to give it to me.
The hope is the Save America Act. Why do you think we kept talking? I kept bringing that up. That's see, people are not starting to understand what I have learned and seen in a third world country. That's why us immigrants, I'm not technically an immigrant, but those of us, those they come to, they're like, pass the Save America Act. Well, why? You are why? Because this is what they did in the country I fled.
Right. Right.
If
Right.
I disagreed and they persecuted me, they've persecuted people. They've taken the law licenses of people who tried to stand up for it. They've abused the law. If there's a civil war, which is what it seems some Democrats want, be careful what you wish for. That's all we can say about that.
Said that
Nobody
before, yeah.
wants that, but be careful what you wish for because the conservative side, we've had our hands cuffed, and we've had them handcuffed willingly because we're not going to be violent. We want to do this at the election at the ballot box. But if you take the ballot box away, what other option will we have is you slowly take our rights? Because once you start going for our guns, I guarantee you, Joe Schmo, the sheriff, is going to go, I'm not going to go down there to the Callahan's. They're going to shoot first, bury me, chop me up. Nobody will know and nobody will figure it out. I'm not going there. That will happen more and more and more. Cities will become more like New York, more like LA, more like San Francisco, bleep holes. And the downfall of American civilization will happen. We're already seeing that happen. Now, y'all be thinking, William, we
This is
got the best
start.
election system
This is
in the
start.
world. Why are you spreading lies? Lies, I say. Show you a couple of slides here before we get to our close.
You're funny.
Look at this. William, we lead the nation. Country, allow mail-in ballot, allow or ID required to vote. United States, allow mail-in ballot. Yes. India, no. Indonesia, no. Brazil, no. Those three are not seen as the epitome of first world nations. They don't allow it. Japan, no. First world nation. Mexico, not first world nation. No. Philippines, no. Germany, yes. Those crowds have never learned to figure out how to do anything right. France, no. South Korea, no. You see the pattern emerging here? They had no because they know how corrupt it is and how much fraud can happen.
Yet, would you really trust Mexico's elections?
The point is, and they know that because it's easier to fix in those countries local elections and state elections. Maybe not
Right.
at a national level, but allow mail-in ballots. Imagine what the cartel will. Every elected official in many of these towns would all be cartel owned without having to go bribe it.
Right.
ID required to vote? United States, no. India, yes. Everybody, straight down, yes.
Yes.
So what's that say about us, Senorita Annette?
It says that relax. It says that we become apathetic. And when
Hold
we
on,
have that
us slow-witted people. I'm asking, what do you mean by apathetic?
well, I think that would only be allowed. It would be an easy answer to say that it's just corruption at its very core. But I think the truer answer, the more true answer is that we become apathetic. We don't care.
See, I completely disagree. We put our trust in these people, and
More people would be voting if
the
you were
seven
right.
sins have taken over,
Well,
and
that's
we've
happened.
allowed it to happen. Because I'm the one who always says, "Got to look at the voter." We're the ones who allow this. But I think we've gotten here because of the corruption, the sin, the greed, the want of power. And these people will say and do anything. Look at all the Black Americans who voted for Obama, believing he would bring hope and change. I knew he wouldn't. I knew Obama was owned by his own masters,
And
just like every other white politician.
you don't think that apathy is now settled in. I don't think the opposite.
No, it has. I'm just saying it's not fully apathy. It takes
That's
two to
not
tango.
where it began, but
Yes,
now where it's
yes.
landed.
Well, it's been there since day one, since the dawn of civilization. It's happened. All right, I want to show one more.
It's been corrupt since day one.
Yes, it has. The strong have always taken from the weak. Why do you think the minority, not in skin color or culture, but the smaller class will dominate and rule because they're stronger, meaner, and they'll subjugate. That's why when revolutions happen before the industrial age, a lot of them would be quick.
Yeah.
Once guns were invented, it's not so quick. Both sides had it, but before then, they could be quick. Look at the French Revolution. Let them eat cake. Okay. You go eat cake from that guillotine bucket.
That's why Spencer Pratt's sort of reenactment of that was so spot on.
So, and here's the other reason why we have to have
People
a
could
better
relate to
system.
that.
I titled this Anomaly My Tush. 2008, Obama, the most beloved president by Black Americans, 69 million votes. 69 million votes, Obama.
Wow.
2012, 65 million. 2016, 65 million. They became the most beloved president in American history. More blacks loved him than Obama. More whites loved him than Ronald Reagan, 81 million.
Wow.
Then Kamala, the next black Indian woman, brown, whatever she identified that day, 68 million. Look at that.
That
12
is
million.
just, I find that so fascinating because if that's what they needed to do, so then Biden could beat Trump in that election, why didn't they do it for Kamala?
Too big to rig. Too
Where's
big to
your
rig.
extra 20 million votes?
That's what some Democrats were wondering. We need an investigation. I was like, please, yes, yes, let's investigate, because those votes never existed.
Right. No,
Pennsylvania got locked down. Pennsylvania got locked down.
yeah.
Georgia got locked down. Meaning, when I say locked down, meaning people were watching this
They were
going
on
on.
it. Yeah, they were right. Correct.
Trump started laying some groundwork to stop that. They started challenging some of these laws that were passed and that were repealed, where Republican legislatures repealed some of these laws. So yeah, and that's how we have to do it. So another example before we go to our closing here is the Senate is changing, the House is changing. Mitch McConnell's gone.
Yep.
John Cornyn is gone. And people don't realize, well, like, gee, God bless his heart, I think he should endorse. President Trump should endorse John Cornyn. It's a safer move. John Cornyn can start voting. And my take is different. And it's not that G's, well, I do think G was wrong there. I'm not picking on him because he's here. It's
Because he's not here. Right. I know.
it's sometimes you're going to suffer early on for the benefit down the road. And in this case, we get rid of a John Cornyn and we're going to get a Ken Paxton, who's more Make America Great Again than not. Now, we're going to lose Tom Tillis, and we may lose that seat, but Tom Tillis was literally voting with Democrats the last 2 years because we lost John McCain, but John McCain we couldn't count on. And people say, well, they vote 80%. Yeah, I don't care about that post office. I don't care about that obituary that honors Schmuckatelli. God bless Schmuckatelli. I hope he's doing well in heaven. I don't care about this little law here, that little law. Well, the big, beautiful bill, that's more important. And that's when they vote no. They vote no on the bills that have the biggest impact. That was the John McCain, the Paul Ryans. So sometimes you have to clean house to get better. So I think our best days may come in 2028 and above, but we got to keep fighting. We got to keep pushing. But for right now, it's a Democrats' world because Trump's fighting not only Democrats, but John Thune and the Rhino Republican.
Yeah.
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 All right.
Well,
go ahead.
Because as we're going to talk about later, there are a lot of issues surrounding Trump at the moment too.
Oh,
everyone's their own worst enemy at some point.
Yes. So now you've got a male-heavy system with almost no ID and a legal wall around the evidence, a corrupt legal wall. So the only question left is, how do you exploit a setup like that in the real world, especially in places like homeless shelters and dirty voter rolls? I'll be rhetorical because I think we kind of explained how they do it, and we didn't do it in depth. We're at the we're past 1 hour mark, so we've got to close this out. But this could be a documentary series on how the voter fraud happens historically, going all the way to, was it Delaney Hall, well, Chicago, New York City, and those bastions. It's spread out. Voter fraud and corruption has been here since day one, since our founding. We've documented it, fired up. This is just the latest that we're seeing, but we're also, I think, the biggest because it's California. It's obvious. It caught the nation's eye. Now, the question that we have to ask is, are we going to allow it to continue? Final words in that before I close it out?
Nope, that was well said.
So by the time you get to the LA mayor's race, you're looking at a system with universal mail-ins, no ID, ballot harvesting, and dirty rolls. And now a law, SB 73, that turns the evidence into a crime scene. Dun-dun. If you even try to look at it. In part 2, we're going to talk about how that fortress actually gets used, especially in homeless shelters, bad addresses, and the kind of ballot harvesting that can flip a race like this without ever leaving a fingerprint, or as Democrats would say, a carbon footprint. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like and share this podcast and follow us on YouTube under Grumblings Media Politics, at Rumble under Grumblings Media. Until next time, my friends, stay safe. Hey, everybody, this is William Del Pilar, founder of Grumblings Media, and I want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our all-volunteer efforts at Grumblings Media, smash the subscribe button right here. 100% free, and please consume and share our great content. Click either one of these two boxes for more of our work.